This is a little different from any other big book meeting. Rather than the readings in the beginning, what we do is an overview of the 164, the first part of the book, okay, that outlines the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. If you've ever gotten a big book and said, wow, that's awfully big, I can't read that. These are stories. This is the program, the first 164 pages, okay? Out of the big book, there's been 4 different editions that have been printed. Okay? Each time we have a new edition put out, we change some of the stories, or we have for the last 4 editions. This part does not change, and that's the part we're going over in this meeting, what outlines the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. If you ever want to read the stories that have been taken out of the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd edition, there's a book called Experience, Strength, and Hope that has all of the stories that have been taken out, so if you have that and the 4th edition, you have everything ever written in the big book. Okay? Now, tonight we're going to be on Chapter 5. Chapter 5 is done in 3 parts. We did up to the 3rd step prayer last week. So we're going to be starting on our 4th step this week. And we will review that when we get to it. So just an overview. This is the 164 pages of the big book. Starts off with the preface. Okay, the preface says we don't change the 164 pages. And we hope maybe when you read this, you go, I felt that way. I think this might work for me. Then we have forwards to the 4 different editions. In the first forward, it says that the main purpose of our book is to show you precisely how we have recovered. So there's clear-cut directions in here, different from suggestions. 90 meetings in 90 days, a really good suggestion, but it's not a clear-cut direction out of the book, okay? Second edition, we throw in some history. 3rd and 4th edition, we talk about how we've grown, okay? The big book pretty much starts right here at the doctor's opinion, all right? If you've ever been in a meeting where they read a portion of Chapter 5, and it says, after the steps, it'll say, our description of the alcoholic, the chapter to the agnostic, and our personal adventures make clear 3 pertinent ideas. A, oh my gosh, I'm an alcoholic. B, no human power has been able to relieve my alcoholism. And C, God could and would if he were sought. Those are the main ideas of steps 1 and 2. And it says originally in the first manuscript, if you're not convinced of these 3 pertinent ideas, please reread the book up until this point or throw it away. But being convinced, you're now at step 3. So that tells me everything in this section from the doctor's opinion in chapters 1, 2, 3, and 4 is me getting the idea of steps 1 and 2. They're concept steps, okay? So let's start off with the doctor's opinion. Maybe I don't know I'm an alcoholic. This is not Dr. Bob. Our 2 founders are Bill Wilson and Dr. Bob. This is not Dr. Bob. This is Dr. Silkworth. He's the doctor that was the chief physician at the hospital that specialized in drug and alcohol addiction at the time, and he helped 40 to 50,000 alcoholics, okay? He's the one that helped detox Bill. And he also described the allergy that we suffer from. Very important. In the doctor's opinion, he talks about that allergy. So maybe I don't know that I'm sick or that I have an allergy to alcohol, right? He'll describe it in there. He talks about being irritable, restless, and discontented, and that balloon will pop unless we, what? Have some spiritual slap on the head. Because we don't have the doctor's like, we don't have a pill that'll fix that. We have no synthetic knowledge that will help you overcome this allergy. But whatever these men have to say seems to work. So that was his introduction supporting what we have in this book. Then Bill tells his story. Our first founder, Bill Wilson, just like in a speaker meeting, he tells his whole story. How he crossed the line. He's going to go out and conquer the world, and then alcohol caught up with him. And then one more time he tried to stop. Depression, stealing from his wife's purse. All the little things that maybe me reading it would go, oh, I felt like that. Wait, I did that. I might be an alcoholic. Or maybe not. Then in there is a solution. It's almost as if all of us chime in and we go, a lot of us felt just like Bill. You might be the real Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, the real alcoholic. Don't worry, if you are, come along, we've got a solution. In More About Alcoholism, we read it in a meeting. It starts off with, none of us wanted to admit we were real alcoholics, right? No person likes to think that he's bodily and mentally different than his fellows. And just like in a participation meeting, we've got Fred, the car salesman, and Jim, and the jaywalker, right? We've got all these little stories that are going to help us maybe go, oh, wait, now I can, that's me. Okay? And up until this point, we've talked a lot about spirituality. We've got a whole chapter, we agnostics, dedicated to don't overthink the God thing. If you got a God, good. If you don't worry about it. Come along for the ride. Okay? You lack that power. So if up until this point I've been trying to stop myself and I haven't been able to, I lack that power to stop. There's got to be a power bigger than me that's going to help me become sane again, like you guys. But I lack that power, so that's the premise of 2. It doesn't say you have to define God or figure out who he is. It's saying just realize that you lack that power. Come along for the ride. It's important in step 2 that ice cube melts through doing the steps. We come in, more of an understanding of ourselves and that higher power while working those steps. Okay? How it works? Chapter 5. We go read all the steps and we say now step 3, and you're going to do an inventory. Into action, chapter 6. We're going to read that inventory to a sponsor. We're going to learn some character defects about ourselves. And we're going to learn how to make amends. We're going to learn how to stay spiritually fit by clearing up and checking ourselves daily with the 10-11 prayer and meditation. And then once we have a difference between what we were feeling up here in these first couple chapters, that incomprehensible demoralization, that fear, I don't know if I can, what's going on, that quicksand that stretches out all around, right? Now we're starting to feel, because we've done the work on ourselves, that freedom, that caring about others more than ourselves, right? And how are we going to do step 12 or sponsorship or introduce ourselves to somebody that still needs this? Working with others. Chapter 12 or chapter 7, working with others, is all about step 12. Now, to the wives, to the family, to the employers, really good information is where you're going to find the description of the 4 different stages, 4 different husbands of alcohol, right? To the family, to the employers, if you got a drunk one of us, give them a book, send them to a meeting. If you got a drunk one of us coming back, this is some of the stuff you might incur. But we were putting this book out in 1939. It wasn't like we had AA meetings all over the place where people are just alcoholics picking up this book. We put this book out and everybody was going to pick it up. So it's going to address certain things that the family may deal with when we get sober and when we think that we're going to come back and everything's going to be hunky-dory in the first 3 days. Right? So, in A Vision for You, the last chapter, we read it in a meeting. We realize we know only little. When we started writing this book, the people with the oldest sobriety were like 2 years sober. That's crazy, huh? We realize we know only little. Here's our book, Don't Die. It kind of sums up the whole 164. And the first story that's ever in the big book is Dr. Bob's Nightmare, which is our second founder. So we have Bill and Dr. Bob. Any questions? Right on. Now, during the reading, crosstalk is encouraged, questions are encouraged. If there's something that I say that you don't understand or you have a question about, just shout it out. If I don't have my glasses on, I won't be able to see you anyway, so don't worry about raising your hand. Just shout it. Like, what's Armistice Day? Hold on. Wait a minute. I didn't, right? And what we're dealing with today, there may be some questions, so just shout it out. And if you don't want to be on the recording when you shout out, we'll cut you out, and I'll just repeat the question, okay? Good? But it's the time for us just like sitting on the couch getting to know this book, okay? Are we ready? Yeah. All right, so last week, we read up to the 3rd step prayer. So remember, I've come along here, A, B, and C. I've realized, oh my gosh, I'm an alcoholic. I'm a little insane. I lack the power to become sane again. No human power has been able to help me. Something bigger than me is going to have to work. I'm convinced of steps 1 and 2, right? Then I had to realize, what did we go over? That page before the 3rd step prayer was all about, what do we mean with this 3rd step? We heard all kinds of stuff, like people would say, yep, there's the 3rd step, gave it to God. Yep, did the 3rd step, turned it over, gave it to God. And that would confuse me. God's will is going to be happening today whether I like it or not, right? It's how I deal with it and walk through it. That self-will run riot will get me in the way. That's me, my self-will, my will. Take away my difficulties with me saying I'm fearful to do that. I don't want to. I want to get away with it. Don't look at that. I'm not going to. Self-pity, self-seeking motives, all that stuff on that page before the 3rd step prayer. We went over it and we talked about it being the keystone. So the 3rd step holds together all the other steps. It's the keystone, that weird shaped stone at the top of an arch. It's going to hold together all the steps. The keystone, so the 3rd step, whenever in doubt, you go back to the 3rd. And we did a 3rd step. And it said, I offer myself to thee to build with me and do with me as thou wilt. We talked about the wording being quite optional, so it was almost like, what you got for me today? Oh, do a 4-step? Oh, I don't want to do that. Build with me and do with me as you will. So the next step's doing a 4-step. Oh, take away my difficulties, my fear of doing a 4-step. So that victory over this means that I can put my hand out to the next person I meet and maybe say, hey, I just did a 4-step, I can help. Victory over this may bear witness to those I may help. So the third step is really all about what you got for me and walking through whatever we have on a daily basis without getting involved with my self-seeking motives, my manipulation, my fears, my insecurities, and all that, so that I'm trying to make it go my way and just walk through what I got, okay? Are we all caught up now? All right. So at the bottom of page 63, after we did the third step prayer, this was only a beginning, but if, though honestly and humbly made, an effect, sometimes very great one, was felt at once. Next, we launched out on a course of vigorous action, the first step of which is a personal house cleaning. When I went through my steps with my sponsor, she goes, what does launch mean? I said, well, you got to plan for it. You got to think about it. You got to make sure. She goes, no. She slammed on the table. Launch! Okay. You do it right away. If not, this is what I heard a long time ago, is you start doing the 1, 2, 3 shuffle. 1, 2, 3 slip. 1, 2, 3 slip. 1, 2, right? Because we never get into that house cleaning. So the next is a personal house cleaning, which many of us had never attempted. Though our decision, which is what we just did in that third step, made a decision, was a vital and crucial step, it could have little permanent effect unless at once followed by a strenuous effort to face and be rid of the things in ourselves which had been blocking us. Our liquor was but a symptom, so we had to get down to the causes and conditions. Therefore, we started on a personal inventory. This was step 4. A business which takes no regular inventory usually goes broke. Taking a commercial inventory is a fact-finding and fact-facing process. It is an effort to discover the truth about the stock in trade. One object is to disclose damaged or insoluble goods, to get rid of them promptly and without regret. If the owner of a business is to be successful, he cannot fool himself about values. We did the exact same thing with our lives. We took stock honestly. Those of you that are writing these down as directions, that's a direction. We took stock honestly. First, we searched out the flaws in our makeup which caused our failure. That's a direction. Being convinced that self, that's what we read on that page before the third step, right? That self manifested in various ways. We talked about it being not just selfishness, but my self-seeking. I'm going to make you do what I want to get away with what I want to get, fear, insecurities, all that stuff. That self manifested in various ways was what had defeated us. We considered its common manifestations. So that paragraph before when it says this is a fact-finding, fact-facing process and it talks about a company that has to take an inventory, right? Think about it. You can think about it like an inventory. I tend to think of it like a refrigerator. Okay? Do you ever go into your refrigerator, you open it up, and you get that, whoo. You close it, and you still smell whatever it is that's not good in there. Somebody comes over to the house, and you go, I got tap water. Because I know I don't want you to see or smell what's going on in the refrigerator, right? I'm not even going to open it in front of you. So then when you leave, I might open the refrigerator, take out the milk, throw it away, and I'm like, shoo, that's done. Later I go in and, woohoo! Now what do I do, right? Maybe I'll call Jackie and I'll go, Jackie, I don't know how to clean out my refrigerator. She goes, I just did that myself. I'll come over and help you. Let's take everything out. Stock and trade, we're going to look at everything. Mustard, that's pretty good. That doesn't go bad, Oh, what's this, spinach? Or what was it? You know what I mean? We throw away the stuff that's bad and unsalvageable, and we keep the stuff that's okay. And we clean the refrigerator. So now I can fill that refrigerator with things that will nourish me and that I can nourish others, right? That's what we're doing with this inventory process. Fact-facing. We're doing an inventory and we're taking a look at everything in there, good and bad, right? And we disclose and get rid of the stuff that's not. So, tonight we're going to be going over just resentments. Ooh. Ooh. How many people, and this is something I didn't know because I did an inventory completely different my first time around, did not know that there were 3 different parts of the inventory. There are. There's resentments, fear, and sex. There's 3 of them, okay? So the 4th step is not just the 3 columns that we're going to go over tonight. It's 3 different inventories. The one we're going over tonight is the resentment one, okay? The other thing I want to mention, just in case I forget, as we're doing this, one of the directions is we put this on paper, okay? It's a direction. It doesn't matter how you put it on paper, but for me, somebody gave me one sheet of paper and I would go across in the line, and then I'd cross the line, and then I'd wait and put it aside, and then I'd lose that piece of paper. And then I would do it again, and then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, now I want to go back and write something more about my dad. Darn. I can't fit it in the little, I have no more lines underneath. So I crumble it up and throw it away. Then I wouldn't start it again. So what I did, FYI, is I did the book like this, right? And I put little tabs in there, like with an R for resentment, fear, sex, right? And I'll show you what I do later, but it doesn't matter how you do it. This is not a direction you have to do it this way. But one of the things that's not mentioned until we get to chapter 6 is that some of the other steps we do, 6 and 7, 8 and 9, it'll say, you did it when you wrote your inventory. And you go, what? I burned it. Wait a minute, somebody told me to burn it. I'm like, oh, now you got to rewrite it. But we're doing all of this, and whatever prompt you get, whether it's in resentments or fear or sex, it might come up with something that's a character defect, or it might come up with something that's a amends that you're not sure. Is that an amends? I'm not sure if it is going to be or it isn't going to be, right? Or it might be a question I have for my sponsor. Either way, I have this, so I have little sections for 8 and 9, the amends, character defect, and I just turn to that page and I jot it down. And then when I meet with my sponsor, I go, oh, I have some questions for you too. But I have it all right here, and I don't have a bunch of little scrappy pieces of paper. If that helps you, I'll be happy to explain it after the meeting a little bit more in detail. Or stick a little piece of paper in your wallet or something, then put it in there when you get there. Okay? But that's just one of the things everybody's got a different way to do it. Some people say, oh, I wrote it on a matchbook. Oh, I just, fine, just write it. Also, Mike Yurko says I'm allowed to use his name. He said earlier the most important thing about doing a 4-step is doing a 4-step. Brilliant and simple. He says, don't worry about the 5th step or reading it to anybody, because then you'll be scared to write something down. Just do the 4th step first, and then worry about the rest of them later, okay? So, out of this inventory we're starting, the first thing we're going to be doing is resentments. Resentment is the #1 offender. It destroys more alcoholics than anything else. From it stem all forms of spiritual disease. For we have been not only mentally and physically ill, we've been spiritually sick. There's a promise. When the spiritual malady is overcome, we straighten out mentally and physically. It's actually a promise with a condition. As long as we straighten out spiritually, then mentally and physically, things will get better, okay? Here's another direction. In dealing with resentments, we set them on paper. So can I just record it? Can I just tell you about it? We set them on paper, period. It's a direction. We listed, it doesn't say that you have to write them in novel form. My dad, one of the things for him was just thumbs, because I have his thumbs, and it brought up a whole bunch of feelings and emotions, but I didn't have to write a whole paragraph. I knew what it meant, so when I read it, it was on paper. I could just tell my sponsor what it meant. In dealing with these resentments, we set them on paper. We listed people, institutions, or principles with whom we were angry. We asked ourselves why we were angry. In most cases, it was found that our, and I have these circled in my book, self-esteem or pocketbook, our ambition, or our personal relationships, including sex, were hurt, threatened. We were sore, burned up. These are some of our multiple choice. It's real simple. How do I know whether it's a resentment? Well, were you burned up or sore? Yeah. Was I hurt by it? Oh, yeah. And it might be. Was it affecting my self-esteem, my pocketbook, right? On our grudge list, we set opposite each name our injuries. Was it our self-esteem, our security, our ambitions, our personal or sex relations which had been interfered with? These are all directions. And we were usually as definite as this example. Okay? So, for me, because I don't like going across the line, because then I run out of space when I think I'm halfway through my inventory and I want to go back to that person and write more on it, right? I do mine where each person on the front part of the page has their name. So I put Dad, and I turn the page 2, front part of that has Susie, next one. Front page of this, Mr. Brown, right? And then I have a whole bunch of lines. And so as I'm going through it, I might turn back to page 3 and write more about that person. One might be blank, but that back side of the page I leave blank for when we put aside and we look at how we reacted to it, okay? Is everybody following along? Yep. Okay, good. So these 3 columns on this page, 65, is the beginning part of this resentment thing, okay? I am resentful at Mr. Brown. The cause? Well, his attention to my wife. And then he told my wife about my mistress. And Mr. Brown might get my job at the office. Ugh. It affects well, let's go to the things I just said to circle. Not too difficult. Well, how do I know what it affects? Just circle something. On that page, I might write a whole bunch of things. I don't have to write sex relations, personal relations. For each item for my dad, on that page, I write Dad, and all this stuff affected my sex relations, self-esteem, whatever, okay? So, Mrs. Jones then, she's a nut. She snubbed me. She committed her husband for drinking, and he's my friend. Plus, she's a gossip. These are the things that have me burned up, sore, upset, right? Well, what did it affect? It affected, let me go back to the checklist here. It affected my personal relationships, yeah. And, because she's a gossip. And what else, right? Follow? My employer, don't get me started. The cause, well, he's unreasonable, unjust, overbearing, wants me to show up on time. Threatened to fire me for drinking and padding my expense account. What did it affect? It affected my self-esteem, my security, my job, my fear, right? Oh, and then my wife. Here's another one. She misunderstands, and she nags. She likes Mr. Brown and wants the house put in her name. I wonder why. I was only missing for 3 months. It affects my pride, my personal relations, sex relations, security, fear, okay? So by this time, I've got 4 pages, just their name at the top and all this stuff written down, okay? Any questions so far? Some people think that the 4th step in the resentments, you just start writing all this stuff that hurts you, right? Makes you feel sore. My thing is, if it prompts you and it makes you think of something, write it down. How free do you want to be? Write it down. That's why I say, have some pages there, and if you go, wait a minute, Mr. Brown, oh, his dog, wait a minute, I kicked his dog that day on the way home. I'm going to have to remember that when I get to my amends. I'll never remember that when I get to my, But if I go to that page and I go, oh, yeah, I better write that down. Ask about what to do about the dog, I think. You know what I mean? So, here's some directions. We went back through our lives. Nothing counted but thoroughness and honesty. Nothing counted but thoroughness and honesty It does not say perfection. It does not say you're going to be graded. When we were finished, we considered it carefully. Do I have any more to write? Right? Now, we're going to be at the top of page 66, one of my favorite pages in the book. There's a big difference between the top of page 66 and the top of page 67. So at the top of page 66, I'm thinking about all these people that have wronged me. And that girl at the recovery house that won't wash the spoon. Ugh. Nobody catches her. She won't do her chore right. I'm the one that gets in trouble all the time. This is just wrong. I'm out of here. You know, pacing back and forth. This is just wrong. She's wrong. And then I tell my counselor, and she goes, well, 3 fingers pointing back at you. If you're what? I think she was talking about me behind my back, too. She's just wrong. My teeth are gritted and my jaw's tight, right? It's apparent that this world and its people were often quite wrong. And to conclude that others was wrong is as far as most of us ever got. The usual outcome was that people continued to wrong us, and we stayed sore. Yep. Sometimes it was remorse, and then we were sore at ourselves for letting that person affect us. But the more we fought and tried to have our own way, the worse matters got. As in war, the victor only seemed to win. Our moments of triumph were short-lived. Some people ask, in war, you have 10 people on this side, 10 people on that side. This person loses 4 people, this person loses 8. I win! No. As in war, the victor only seems to win because we both lose, right? When there's a war. Okay. So, it is plain that a life which includes deep resentment leads only to futility, emptiness, and unhappiness. To the precise extent that we permit these, do we squander away the hours that may have been worthwhile? Anybody squander away hours? Yeah. I'd be sitting in that recovery house because Susie wouldn't wash the spoon, and I'm sitting there and everybody else went in to do movie night in the living room, and I'm like, no, I'm not going. And I want her to know that I'm upset, but I'll sit there and stew in it for a while, right? I'm going to squander away my own hours, right, that may have been worthwhile. But with the alcoholic, whose hope is the maintenance and growth of a spiritual experience, this business of resentment is infinitely grave. It's a place where my sponsor asked me, what does that mean? I'm like, well, it's bad. Grave, period. If not, it's followed up with a very short sentence. We found that it is fatal. Dead. For when harboring such feelings, we shut ourselves off from the sunlight of the Spirit. The insanity of alcohol returns and we drink again. And with us, to drink is to die. So I'm shut off from the sunlight of the Spirit. I'm pacing. I'm like, this is just wrong. She didn't wash the spoon. I'm out of here. I'm shut off from the sunlight of the Spirit. The insanity of my thinking returns. People believe her. Nobody wants to, and I'm out of here. And for me, to drink is to die. If we were to live, we had to be free of this anger. Well, of course. Can we just get rid of Susie? Oh, no, that's not it. Right, hold on. The grouch and the brainstorm were not for us. What's the grouch and the brainstorm? The grouch is me standing over here going, that's Susie, I'm telling you, da-da-da-da-da, blah, blah, blah. You know, she did, right? And the brainstorm, which was one of my favorite tools, don't say I said this, but do you know that Susie didn't wash the spoon? Somebody should inform her counselor besides me. I just, wanted you to know. I want to get everybody to not like Susie because she hurt me. The grouch and the brainstorm are not for us. So they may be the dubious luxury of normal men. I always think of Thurston Howell, those of you that used to watch Gilligan's Island. Yeah. Oh, yes, I have 3 yachts. I have this. Yeah. They can do this kind of stuff. Does not affect them like it does us. But if it affects me differently, because I'm blocked from the sunlight of the Spirit, the insanity of my thinking returns, I'm out of here, and I'm going to drink and possibly die. Well, thank you very much. It's not my fault. I did my chore. She didn't, how come I'm going to die because she didn't do, I'm not getting it yet. But the alcoholic, these things are poison. So here's a direction. We turn back to the list. Well, we just started. For it held the key to the future. And we're prepared to look at it from an entirely different angle. Not this angle. Sideways, backwards. But we began to see that the world and its people really dominated us. In that state, the wrongdoing of others, fancied or real, had the power to actually kill. Tammy, you got a spider in your hair. Say she's deathly afraid of spiders. She's, what? Shakes her hair. Does she have to have a spider in her hair for her to react that way and go, what? And for her heart to kind of skip a beat? Right? No. I don't have, Susie did not have to talk about me behind my back for me to react that way, for my heart, right? So fancied or real, whether it really happened or it's in my imagination, fancied or real, it still had the power to kill me. So how do I escape? We saw that these resentments had to be mastered, but how? We couldn't wish them away any more than we did alcohol. How many people have been in a meeting, it's one of my pet peeves, and have heard somebody say, pray for that one, they're a sick one. Oh yeah, that one over there, they're a sick one, right? Puts me up on this high horse and I'm looking down on another, right? I'm kind of going, that one's a sick one, we'll pray for them, right? And then somebody will go, pray for them for 2 weeks to get everything that, you know, blah, 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 blah. That's not a direction in the book. Happy to say, because I didn't like that one. I was not going to pray for Susie to get my boyfriend, my job, and, right? It was not going to help me to pray for her to get my, that's what she was trying to do anyway, right? So that what came from a story in the big book, in the back, where somebody said this was a suggestion, something that they did that helped them, which is a very good suggestion. It's not a direction out of the directions for the 4-step, okay? This is the direction when we talk about that. So fancy to real, I'm blocked from the sunlight of spirit, the insanity of my thinking returns, I'm going to drink and die. What do? This was our course. We realized that the people who wronged us, those on our list, were perhaps spiritually sick. Though we did not like their symptoms and the way they disturbed us, they, like ourselves, were sick too. So if I have the flu and Alan has the flu and I got the runny nose and I can't talk and I got my lips are all chapped and my, right? Alan doesn't look sick at all. He might have an upset stomach all day. Does that mean one of us has the flu and the other doesn't? No, our symptoms are different. And we walk in these rooms the same exact way. And those out there, the same exact way. They, like me, are spiritually sick. I'm looking at where I'm spiritually sick when I'm doing this inventory, right? They, like myself, are perhaps spiritually sick. It's kind of like, this is called the 4-step prayer. It's the only prayer in the big book for ourselves, specifically. And it's kind of like acceptance, to just allow them to be, right? So when I'm walking around on the top of page 66 going, this is just wrong, Susie talked about me, right? I'm pacing back and forth. I got my jaw gritted. But I take a breath and I go, we ask God to help us show them the same tolerance, pity, and patience we would cheerfully grant a sick friend. Right? The person I don't like bumps into me coming into this room. And I'll be like, she did that on purpose. I know she, you know. But somebody I love walks in and bumps into me in the room. I'm like, oh, no biggie, right? Change the way you look at things. The things you look at change. And acceptance doesn't mean approval. So a person can still be doing dumb, stupid stuff and may very well be doing things that, you know, would hurt others. But if I can just allow them to be, doesn't mean acceptance doesn't mean approval. Okay? I'm going to say, God, this is a sick man. How can I be helpful? God, save me from being angry. Thy will be done. To say that prayer, it is a direction, yes. So, I've got my columns, or my pages, right? So, we got Susie. She did this, she did this, she did this. It affected my everything sector, really, all the multiple choices, right? And before I keep sitting in that and go on, now my dad, oh my God, my dad did this, he left us, you know, whatever. And I'm feeling that hurt, pain, sore, burned up. I'm at the top of page 66. My jaw's grit. And I soon can be blocked from the sunlight of spirit. So what happens then is somebody's like, go do your 4-step. I've been working on my 4-step for a month and I haven't been able to talk to my sponsor because I'm not done yet. And I feel like drinking. Well, yeah. Did you follow it all the way through? For each person that you're writing on that resentment list, follow it all the way through to the top of 66. So while I'm writing my 4-step resentments, I can also go, God, save me from being angry. Help me show this person the same tolerance, patience, acceptance that I would cheerfully grant a dear friend, okay? That make sense? Different feeling altogether. And it'll help you get through that resentment inventory without getting all nuts and ready to just blow out of there, right? Okay. So, like I said, now I have that page, the way that I did my resentments, right? I did them on that page where I just write at the top. Sometimes I didn't even know what I wanted to write yet. I just wrote Dad, and I turned the page, and top of the next page I wrote Susie, right? So this one right here, so all this is my pain, resentment on that front part of the page, right? I've said the prayer for this person. Now, here's a direction. We avoid retaliation or argument. Obviously, if I said the prayer, I'm going to be in acceptance. We avoid retaliation or argument. We wouldn't treat sick people that way. If we do, we destroy our chance of being helpful. We cannot be helpful to all people, but at least God will show us how to take kindly and a tolerant view of each and every one. What if that Susie that wouldn't wash the spoon comes by when I've got 6 months sober and I'm still harboring a resentment, and she comes by and goes, you're the only one I can talk to. I want to do this. Will you show me how? And I've got this resentment. I don't know, but I lose my opportunity to be helpful if I've retaliated against her and blew up her car. Right? Probably. But we don't treat sick people that way. We lose our chance to be helpful. God's going to show us who and put in front of us who we're supposed to help. Here's another direction. Referring back to the list again. That 3 columns in the prayer, right? We're so far just on that front page, or those first 3 columns, right? Turning back to the list again, we putting out of our minds the wrongs others had done, we resolutely looked at our own mistakes. What? Where had we been selfish? Here's some more multiple choice, so I circle them. Selfish, dishonest, self-seeking, and frightened. So putting completely out of my mind. When I was doing it across in a long line, I wanted to go tit for tat for each item on the list. This person did that. What did I do? What was my part? I didn't have a part in some of it. Some of it I had a part and they didn't. So I didn't go tit for tat. It's saying we put completely out of our mind. So that's why I have the back page. I just turn the page. And now I have a blank page, Dad. Putting out of my mind whatever Dad did. It's not going across. What did I do to Dad? Where had I been? Selfish, dishonest, self-seeking, or frightened. If I blew up his car or slashed his tires, I might turn to the page that goes, I'm going to probably do that as a result. It's going to be on my amends list, right? I tend to use explosives when angry. I'm going to put that on my character defects. Right? So those are the directions. Referring to the list again, we put out of our mind the wrongs the others had done. We resolutely looked at our own mistakes. Where had we been? Selfish, dishonest, self-seeking, and frightened. Here's a quick story. I had somebody come up to me, true story, who had been raped. Never caught the guy. Don't know who he was. Long time ago. It was on her list. She came up and asked me, my sponsor won't let me go forward because she says I won't put down my part. And it was just tearing her apart. And she put her 4-step aside. You might not. You might come up to that when you discuss it with her later. Who knows? But if you can't think of it, you may not have it. Now, there might be Dad. I'm pissed off at him and I don't know why. He was a wonderful person. And I just He didn't show me enough attention or something. Who knows? But I turned the page and I stole his coins. Oh, yeah, I did this. Oh, forged his name, did that. And I might have a whole list of stuff that I did based on my own selfishness, my dishonesty, my self-seeking. I want, or my frightened. I'm scared. Okay? So it's not tit for tat is what I'm trying to get at. It doesn't go across the line. We put completely out of our minds. Any questions? Yeah? No? Yeah? Everybody's like, yes, can't wait to write on my full stamp. All right, so that first page that has the columns, Mr. Brown, cause and effect, right? We got some multiple choices. It's real easy. But here's the deal. If I'm pissed off at Susie, and you and I go over there by the coffee, and you go, hey, what's the deal with Susie? I have no problem going, I'll tell you. You know, she was talking about me behind my back the other day. I swear she took that 20 out of my purse. And da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, right? I'll list off a whole bunch of stuff about it, right? But then I go over here and I have to write it on paper for my sponsor, and I'm like, I got nothing. If we think of it that way, we can very easily do who, why, and it affected what? Those are kind of the prompt ones. Those it affected are prompts for some of the other stuff we're going to be coming up. You know, my character defects. You know what I mean? But they're prompts. And then the prayer. So far we're at those 4 columns. Okay? Doesn't say specifically 4 columns. It says a list. Okay? I love when the debate comes up, well, there's 5 columns. No. I heard, yes.
For every person, you do a prayer.
Yeah. Why not? Especially if you're still feeling, if you just wrote it down and you're walking around going, and you're at the top of page 66 feeling blocked from the sunlight of the Spirit, and the insanity of your head's going to return, and you're just going to, yeah, say the prayer. Spend a whole day on it. You just did a whole bunch of writing on somebody that, you know, caused you a lot of burned up feelings and sore and hurt. While driving, just say, God save me from being angry. Help me just accept them as they are. It doesn't have to be those words exactly, but that's the direction in the book. Okay? Say it throughout the whole next day. On each person maybe. Just spend that day so that you can kind of not carry it with you. Right on? All right, so now I've completely put out of my mind what they've done, and I've looked at what I did in regards to this person, situation, this principle or institution. Right? I'm not going to bomb the DMV. They could go on the list too. I put completely out of my mind, and I wrote down me. Where had I been selfish, dishonest, self-seeking, or frightened? Where do you think this is going to come up? In those character defects. We returned back. We wrote them down when we got to the list. So these are the things that are prompting us to do what amends we're going to need to do or our character defects. Though a situation had not been entirely our fault, of course, we tried to disregard the other person involved entirely. Where were we to blame? Where was I to blame? The inventory was mine, ours, not the other man's. When we saw our faults, we listed them. We placed them before us in black and white. These are all directions. We admitted our wrongs honestly and were willing to set these matters straight. Does that not sound like when we admitted our wrongs and we're willing to set them straight means that I'm willing to make an amends, or at least write it on that, made a list of people we had harmed, right? So I'm going to put that, I'm filling all this out. It's almost like you're doing everything from 4 through 9 or through 8 all in one lump sum, okay? Any questions? So we set them, our faults, we listed them, we placed them before us in black and white, we admitted our wrongs honestly, and we're willing to set these matters straight. So let's say with Mr. Brown, while I was writing that resentment, and I came across that, oh, I think I kicked his dog. Hold on. I will probably forget that when I get all the way down to my 8 and 9 with my sponsor. But if I turn to that page that says 8 and 9 and I go, oh, Mr. Brown, the dog, you know, question mark. What do I do? I'll ask my sponsor about it. I'll know, you know, when we do my 5th step, right? And she might come up with something like, bring some, you know, because the dog's probably long gone by now, and bring some kibble to a shelter for a month. Okay. Do a living amends or do something, you know, that's going to help you get over that. But I was willing to write it down. Some of those amends, just because we, at the time, when we're going through our 4-step, are not willing to make that amends, I'm willing to put it down and write it on paper. I'm willing to set it straight. Maybe. But I'll get there. Right now, we're just writing it down, okay? Don't worry about the rest of the steps, but if it prompts you to write something down so you don't forget it, write it down. Any questions? Yeah. All right, so we did our 3rd step. Whenever in doubt, too, go back to the 3rd. Remember, what you got for me today? Oh, I got to work on my resentments and my inventory. Take away my fear, my insecurity. Then I'm going to have to read this to somebody, right? Take that away so that I can, victory over this, that I can walk through and do this inventory and then help somebody else, right? And we did our columns, who, why, what it affected, and then said the little prayer. So we're not blocked from the sunlight of spirit, the insanity returns. Remember, fancied or real, doesn't matter whether it's in my brain or if it's really there, it's going to affect me the same way, and the only way out of that is to say that prayer and say, God, save me from being angry. And then I put completely out of my mind what they've done, and I looked at me, and I said, what, in regards to this person or institution, have I done out of selfishness, dishonesty, self-seeking, or fear?